Maria focused intently on her computer screen. After Halloween, she took November to rest and recuperate. During that time, she was either alone or with Brandon. The siblings trained, ate, slept, and repeated the cycle. They barely noticed Christmas sneak up on them. It was only 2 days until December 25th. Maria paused her doom session to check the clock. The device read 7:30 p.m. Guess I should head downstairs. She closed the game. Out on the porch, Maria waited under deathly cold air. Within 20 minutes, a taxi pulled into the driveway. Moments later, a middle-aged woman emerged. Her hair was a dark shade of chocolate. It was tied in a bun, concealing its true length. Slowly, the cab pulled away before driving off. Maria rose to her feet. She approached the entity before her. They stood silent, fixated on each other until the adolescent spoke. "Hey, Mom." At last, Maria had been reunited with her estranged mother, Sarah. It seemed as though neither of them knew what to do. That was until Sarah squeezed her daughter in a tight embrace. The older woman chuckled, weeping all the while. "You've gotten taller," she sniffled softly. Maria returned the embrace, clinging to her mother in remorse. "We should head inside," the teen finally advised. Sarah released her daughter and nodded. She followed Maria to the front door. When they opened it, they found a black kitten waiting for them. "Who's this?" the older woman questioned endearingly. "Ian. We found him hiding during a storm a few months ago." Sarah reached down to pick him up. She cradled the feline the same way one would an infant. "He's so pretty." She registered the amalgamation of noise from her daughter's room. "It's funny. I always thought Brandon would be the one to get into screamo stuff. He'll listen from time to time. I guess in hindsight it suited your personality more." "Yeah. I'll make some cocoa." Maria nodded. Sarah stirred 2 mugs of hot chocolate. She handed the second cup to her daughter. "I made yours with extra sugar, just like when you were little." "Thanks." The pair sat across from each other, sipping their beverages while they contemplated what to say. "So, what have you been up to?" Sarah inquired. "Aside from school and computer stuff, I've just been trying to keep myself in fighting shape." "Brandon said you were on medication." "Sertraline. It's an antidepressant." "I see. Did you know? About my head, I mean." "I had an idea." "How come you never said anything?" "I didn't know what to say. No parent expects their child to go through something like that, especially at such a young age." "True. I suspect what happened with your father aggravated your condition." "How long has it been?" "A long time. 12 years if memory serves." "My memory's hazy. Didn't you take us to see him once?" "I tried, but he'd already been transferred." "Go figure." "I'm really sorry." "Yeah, so am I. If I knew then what I know now, things would have turned out differently." "You're not the only one." "I never stopped thinking about you, you know. Brandon used to give me updates all the time on how you were doing." "I figured." "You knew?" "He probably would have shut down otherwise. There's only so much one person can endure." "You were always more comfortable in isolation." "I didn't plan on sticking around long enough for it to matter." I remember. It's more complex than that now. How so? I'm curious. There's a lot of belief systems these days. I want to know which is accurate. A test of faith. There's only one way. Brandon arrived home late from work that night. The family talked over dinner and a movie. They discussed what their lives had led up to and where they intended to go. Emily's family arrived early the next morning. Maria, Brandon, and Sarah greeted them on the front lawn. What none of them expected was to see Eric between the group. Maria pulled him into a tight hug. "What are you doing here, man?" "We invited him," Robert revealed. "We figured he didn't have any plans for the holidays. You guys seem pretty tight, so..." "I appreciate it," Maria replied graciously. "Not at all." Emily approached Maria. The teen knelt down to meet her at eye level. "How's it hanging, kiddo?" The child jumped into her spirit sister's arms. Maria felt relief wash over both of them with the force of a typhoon. Sarah approached the younger girl with a delicate, graceful stride. "You must be little Emily. It's nice to finally meet you." Emily looked up at the older woman with noticeable confusion. "Who are you, ma'am?" Maria released Emily from her grasp. "This is my mother," the adolescent stated gently. "You can call me Auntie Sarah if you'd like." Emily nodded. It was clear she trusted Sarah right off the bat. "We brought the computer like you asked," Robert cut in. "Still not sure why you wanted it so bad." "I've been teaching Em HTML for web design. Figured it'd be a useful skill since PCs are getting more popular these days. It's fun to tinker with in your spare time." "Gotcha." George and Lisa approached Sarah. Maria's mother shook the older man's hand. "Guess I know where the young lady gets her good looks from." Lisa giggled, playfully swatting her husband's arm. "You're Robert's parents, right?" Sarah inquired. "Indeedy do. It's nice to see spirited older folks for a change." "Everyone where you're from boring old geezers?" "Maryland. I haven't really gone out much the past few years, mostly just to pay bills and pick up groceries." "Should be a good change of pace for you then." "Yes, it should be." "So what now?" Maria questioned uncertainly. "We have a few hours before dinner." "I'd like to speak with Emily's family in private," Sarah requested. "Would that be all right?" Robert nodded. "We'll take care of them till you get back," Maria assured. "Maria, before I go, dear, I made copies of the photos from Halloween," Lisa interjected. The older woman opened her purse, handing the duplicates to her young friend. "Thanks. I'll hang 'em upstairs later." The two groups gradually split apart from each other. As the older quintet became distant, Maria and the others moved next to the house. Whether to kill time or covertly sharpen their combat skills, they showed Emily how to backflip off solid surfaces. Sarah strolled north with her new acquaintances to get a feel for the town's layout. In many ways, Georgia was no different from any other part of the U.S. There were parks, stores, and residences as far as the eye could see. "I'd ask how you met my children, but Brandon already told me everything," Sarah said apologetically. "We started talking to her online a year ago," Robert explained. "It was our first time using the internet. We bought a computer because we thought it'd be a good business investment." Emily's father chuckled and sighed sadly. "Never thought it'd end up saving our skins." Chelsea rubbed her husband's back to comfort him. They were always protective of each other, Sarah continued. I suppose they've always lived on the defensive. It was probably their way of coping with the isolation and their father not being around. What happened? Chelsea inquired cautiously, unsure she wanted to know the answer. Peter was a heavy drinker. He struggled with post-traumatic stress disorder from a difficult childhood. I guess it came back to haunt him in the end. A fight broke out one night at the local bar. He was charged with aggravated battery and attempted murder not long after. George grumbled. Is something wrong? Sarah asked out of concern. Your daughter's got some heavy demons weighing her down. Not just personal, but universal too. You're referring to the suicidal ideation? George nodded. Maria was always different from other children. She wasn't interested in making friends or any of the other traditional pursuits. She was content spending her time alone. Most days she would sit around playing video games with Brandon. Many would probably confuse her with one of those shooter types you hear about on the news. Her anger was turned inward instead of out. Neither of them ever acted out aggressively until it boiled to the surface. This is my first time seeing them in 3 years. She recently tapered off medication for depression, didn't she? Robert reminded. Yes. She looks a lot healthier now, but her mind's still trapped in that dark space. I don't think this is something medical knowledge can fix. George was at a loss. What can we do? Nothing. The boundaries of life and death transcend my abilities as a parent. Whether she lives or dies is her choice to make. All we can do is trust Brandon and the others to keep her breathing. If I know my son as well as I think I do, he's still got a few tricks up his sleeve. Emily's family offered Sarah hopeful stares. Was there really still time for Maria to change her mind? Upon returning to the house, Emily's family unpacked their belongings with Eric. Maria showed them their accommodations. Brandon's room was reserved for Emily, Robert, and Chelsea. George, Lisa, and Eric were given the spare guest room upstairs. Sarah and her children took Maria's room. When the tour ended, everyone was left to lounge around until dinner. Emily met Ian for the first time that day, petting him and carrying him around wherever she went. Animals are cute when they're not trying to eat your face off, Maria joked morbidly. Emily snuggled Ian tightly in response. Later in the day, Maria introduced Emily to a relatively new genre of music, metalcore. This is where the lyrics on my profile came from when we first met. I like it. Thought you might, but I wasn't sure. Most kids your age haven't had to fight off a serial killer before. I figured your circumstances were a bit more unusual at this point. Yeah. Emily held Ian close. She closed her eyes, letting herself become lost in her own world. When night finally fell, the party reconvened on the veranda. Dark clouds had formed sometime during the previous hours, threatening rain. They weren't particularly bothered by this, though. Brandon locked the door behind them. Should we walk or drive? He questioned. I want to walk, Emily replied in a low, monotone voice. Are you sure, hun? Robert asked his daughter. Emily nodded. I'm with Em, Maria proclaimed without hesitation. Looks like we're hoofing it then, Robert relented. Emily took Maria's hand. The group began their trek to the northwestern edge of town. Have you thought about what you want for Christmas? The teen asked her young friend. Emily shook her head. I don't really want a lot this year. I hear you. I just wanted to see you again. Yeah, guess we both got what we wanted already. Under the cloak of impending nightfall, Robert gave a pleased smirk. It took the better part of an hour to reach the restaurant. It was a slightly higher-end establishment than the fast food chains scattered throughout the city. Brandon held the door while they gathered inside. Dinner's on us tonight, he told them. Thank you, Chelsea replied sweetly. That's very thoughtful. Don't mention it. This is why I hang with you guys, Eric said in jest. Y'all always got food covered. We never got the chance to introduce ourselves, Sarah noted. Where are you from, Eric? New York, ma'am. I hear there's a big art community there. Yeah, lots of folks up there and all kinds of stuff. I've wanted to visit for a while. Perhaps we could all make arrangements at some point to meet up there? Yeah. Maria was tempted to slip in a humorous quip about her mom flirting with her friends, but she felt it too cliché for the situation at hand. She bit her tongue, opting to let the situation play out naturally. It was more interesting that way. After dinner, the party headed another 2 miles north. A cleansing drizzle descended over them, keeping them cool along the way. Their penultimate destination for the evening was a supermarket on the road leading outside town. Maria, Brandon, and Eric took Emily to an arcade located near the entrance. Sarah examined the shelves, letting herself unwind window shopping with Chelsea, George, Lisa, and Robert. There's something I still don't understand, Emily's father extended. You said Maria wasn't interested in interacting with people, but she was cordial with us from the first time we talked. She probably figured you were easy to get along with, Sarah responded. We all have more life experience than we did before. We know young people aren't coping well with the pressures and anxieties of daily life. Then why did you have your falling out? I missed the memo for a while. She has a way of changing people like that. That's my girl. Since you brought it up, Robert reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a neatly folded sheet of paper, handing it to Sarah. All she had to read was the top line. Well, what do you know? When everyone returned home, they settled into their respective quarters. Emily dropped by Maria's room to say goodnight. I love you, the child muttered groggily. I love you too, kiddo. Sweet dreams. Sarah watched the scene unfold before her with interest. Fate. Maybe it does exist after all. Everyone slept in Christmas morning. Brandon was the first to awaken. While waiting for the others, he went downstairs to get a drink. Emily met him in the kitchen a few minutes later. Morning, he greeted wearily. Morning. Bet you're wondering if the jolly man showed up. Emily shook her head. No? I've been thinking about other stuff. Yeah. Seeing death up close will do that. Do you think about it too? It's part of my job. What's your job? I'm a counselor. I help people like you. Or I'm supposed to, anyway. Maria got the drop on me this time. Why do we have our powers? I don't know. Could be genetic, but something tells me anyone can use them if they know how. I want to show Mom and Dad. That's what we're planning on. Really? Can't keep it a secret forever, right? I guess so. Emily looked around. Where's Ian? He went upstairs. Can I have a sip? Sure, long as you don't mind old man germs. Emily took a swig of juice, relieving the dryness in her throat. Hey, save some for me, Brandon chuckled. Sorry, I'm just messing with you. The elder Drake sibling thought for a moment about what to do while everyone else was still asleep. Hey, want to watch TV for a bit? They've got some new cartoons that look pretty neat. Sure. We'll pick up Ian outside the room. Half an hour later, Maria and Sarah visited each bedroom, rousing their companions. Maria led them to the living room in the west end of the house. Presents were piled in a circular pattern around the floor. A Christmas tree stood tucked away against the southernmost wall. Where did you find time to do all this? Robert asked, bewildered. Planning ahead's our specialty, Maria replied. I did most of the wrapping while Brandon was at work. Just like when they were little, Sarah uttered. One by one, Brandon designated each gift. Emily's were the most practical of the bunch. She received an upgraded hard drive for her computer and a set of 5-pound dumbbells for strength training. Eric was given several posters and art supplies for when he returned home. Sarah, Robert, Chelsea, Lisa, and George were each given theater tickets and spending cash to treat themselves with. The last few are mine and Maria's. We'll open them later. Before we dig into the goodies, there's something we need to show you, Maria began. Follow me. The rest of the group trailed behind the young Drake. She led them onto the veranda, walking off the steps into the yard. She turned back to face them. There's something important I have to ask you. Do you believe human beings can evolve beyond where we are now? That's an unusual question, Robert admitted. Why? That's what I want to show you. Come again? From the recesses of her coat, Maria extracted a black pocket knife, the same knife she used on Halloween. Eric backed away. Aw, hell no. Relax, I couldn't attack you if I wanted to. What you doing with that thing, girl? Calm your mind. Watch. Maria held the knife downward at a 45-degree angle. For the first few moments, nothing happened, and then the air shifted. Hun, look, Chelsea exclaimed. She pointed upward. The clouds from the previous night reformed, veiling the landscape in shadows. Oh my God, Robert said under his breath. Around the globe, oceans began to stir. A gentle breeze encompassed the earth, swaying all manner of plant life. A ghostly tranquility swallowed everything. Even the busiest highways transmuted into a calm state. Blue energy encapsulated Maria's body, transferring itself to her blade. The weapon's length was effectively tripled by the surge. Her bangs parted, exposing her sorrowful blue eyes, her father's eyes. This is what the end result of living as an empty shell looks like. Once you're cut off from the rest of humanity, only 3 options remain: strength, death, or both. I've chosen the third. Emily and Brandon moved to Maria's side. Brandon and I discovered this power the night we were forced to put those wolves down. We were just as confused as you. When we resumed our training, we tried testing its effects to no avail. It wasn't until Emily's birthday that we finally understood its purpose: to negate the evil of man. Robert quickly broke the silence. Well, this is an unexpected turn of events. You don't seem all that surprised. We knew there was something different about you from day one. It's shocking, sure, but coming from you, it's nothing out of the ordinary. In fact, now I'm more confident in what I had planned. You lost me. Robert pulled out the piece of paper he showed Sarah on Christmas Eve. We've seen the way Emily lights up when you're around. She feels safe and protected, not to mention how receptive she is to your teachings. Now I understand why. He handed the sheet to the young Drake. No way. Brandon peered over his sister's shoulder. Holy shit. Maria, Emily muttered, what's wrong? For the first time since she was 4 years old, Maria smiled. Her expression was genuine and warm. Nothing, kiddo. Nothing at all.